Okay. Are we good now? Awesome. Fabulous. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. This is the hopefully annual Pelvic Acu virtual open house. I am really excited that you are taking time out of your busy client schedules. I know this season is crazy for a number of reasons, and spending a little bit of time with me. I'm really honored. And if you do celebrate holidays during this season, whatever those holidays are, thank you so much for sharing your time. And also, I want to wish you an abundant holiday season, whatever that means for you. So, thank you so much for being here. If we have not met before, I want to tell you just a little bit about myself. I am an acupuncturist and a PT. I'm known as the Pelvic Acu, and I am very passionate about bringing acupuncture and pelvic health into unification. I want to see more and more acupuncturists and acupuncture practices like yourself and like you include pelvic health into what you're already doing. And the reason for that is because as acupuncturists, we have a really unique skill set and a really unique, comprehensive viewpoint of the whole body. We're amazing at going to the source of dysfunction. And I think we have the capacity to bring together the physical dysfunction with whatever's happening within the organ systems of the body, as well as including the spirit and the emotion into what we're doing. And that's really the three facets or three pillars of how I like to work with pelvic care as an acupuncturist and what really sets us apart from other practitioners. Recently, I have been published in Acupuncture Today and Medicinal Roots Magazine, which is such an honor and so, so exciting. I also have been featured in a monthly vlog on the American Acupuncture Council's website. So I do a video each month that has to do with the pelvic floor and how it impacts either menstruation, fertility, pregnancy, etc. So that's another free resource that is available to you as well. So look out for those vlogs. And that's a little bit about me. Now, I want to know about you. Some of you I know and I recognize, so welcome. It's great to see you again. Tell me your name in the comments, where you practice, the type of practice that you have. So if you have a specialty in women's health or in fertility or men's health or something like that, I'd love to know about that. And I'd also love to know what you hope to gain from today's experience. And you can also feel free to share your Instagram handle, because connecting through social media in this industry that we sometimes feel alone in as acupuncturists can be really, really important. So go ahead and leave me some notes in the comments section. And yeah, I want to get to know you. I want to help you with your business, right? Okay. So let's see what we've got in the chat here. There we go. Okay, awesome, good. I don't have any messages coming through just yet, but please give me some feedback about you. I want to know you so I can help you, okay? We'll keep addressing that as time goes on. And I'll kind of move on. I also want to say, oh, here we go. Okay, now they're starting to come through. Hi, Autumn from Asheville, North Carolina. You specialize in ortho and women's health. That's amazing. And you've been venturing into pelvic health through dry needling. That is fabulous. That's actually really where I started was with, as a PT, I started with dry needling of the pelvis. I was doing dry needling way before it was cool, way before it was like a 4-hour workshop. And that is kind of where my love for working with the pelvis started. So that's awesome, Autumn. I'm glad you're here and I'm really excited to meet you. Okay, so while you're kind of getting your thoughts in order here today, I have a little bit of a raffle opportunity for you. So the way that this is going to work, and I have some really, really good prizes for you. So the way that this is going to work is if you find something that you're talking about today exciting or it resonates with you, go ahead and use your phone and do a little video or do a snapshot and post it on your Instagram story and tag the Pelvic Acu. Whoever sort of provides the most shares will get a prize. And that prize is going to be a free course from any of my selection of online courses. So that's a great opportunity. Also, if you love what we're teaching today or something really connects with your clientele, feel free to share that in your stories, like as a little story of, hey, I'm so-and-so from Southern Maine, and this is what I'm up to today, blah, 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 thanks to the Pelvic Acu. Whatever you share, that counts. So if you want to be a participant in the raffle, I would love for you to be a participant in the raffle. Okay, so Genevieve, another ortho pain-focused practitioner, loves dry needling and is in Southern Maine. Hello, welcome, good to see you again. Julie, Jacksonville, Florida, exact same as Autumn. So we've got a lot of ortho, pain, women's health practitioners here today, which is really, really amazing. Some fertility and bringing pelvic floor in as well. So that's fabulous. So you guys are right in alignment with where I started as a practitioner, which is so cool. Yeah, let's keep going. Okay, so before we talk about how to bring this in your business and what you can do to transform your business, let's talk about the why. Here's some statistics. $16 billion, billion with a B, has been spent on pelvic health in the United States alone. That is a huge, huge number. And it also means that people are spending money on pelvic health services. This statistic actually includes money that is spent on tools and devices and classes beyond what's spent just in medical offices. So people are buying products without having consultations with their physicians, right? So we can help these clients in a big way. They're already spending money. We should be bringing ourselves into this spend. 16% of males and 32% of females are suffering from chronic pelvic pain or pelvic dysfunction. That's a big number. These are the diagnosed cases, and this is per year. So this is a huge percentage of our population. I also wanted to say that while there aren't statistics yet about acupuncturists bringing pelvic care into their practices and how much they are charging, there are statistics for pelvic PT visits, and those are about $180 to $300 per visit. So those are some big numbers as well. And while what we're not doing is pelvic PT, what we are doing is pelvic care for acupuncturists. Our services are going to be at a similar, or should be at a similar cost point, right? This is another super interesting study. It was done of 400 participants, and there were 72% of women that anonymously through the study reported that they were experiencing pelvic pain in the past year. And yet nearly 3/4 of that 72% did not seek treatment and also did not talk to their physicians about it. So is the number bigger than what we're actually seeing? I think it very well could be. People are not talking about this for whatever reason. There could be shame involved. There's some type of emotion involved with why they're not sharing, why they're not telling their doctor, I have bladder leakage, I have bowel leakage, I'm experiencing pain with sex. And these are big, big numbers. 72% of 400 women. That's huge. And 3/4 of those didn't talk about it, didn't seek treatment. So the interesting thing about that is that these women are living, and men as well, but this study was on women, are living with their dysfunction. They think that they have to live with their dysfunction. They may not know how to get help. They may not know what type of help is available, but it's not translating that they can have help, that they don't have to live like this. And 14 to 32% of women experience pelvic pain or dysfunction that significantly impacts their quality of life. And again, these are the reported numbers, right? So are there more? Maybe. But quality of life, if we are experiencing pain with sex, if we're experiencing sexual dysfunction, if we're experiencing incontinence of bowel or bladder that prevents us from doing the things that we love, that's a huge impact on quality of life. And as acupuncturists, we know that if people are preventing themselves from going out and being social, going out and doing the things that they love because of what's happening in their body, their mobility, their function all begin to decline. And so does their mental health, right? Because they're not getting the type of support that they need. I just want to share one more statistic because I think it's really important when we talk about pelvic care, particularly in postpartum. It's that in certain countries around the world, including Belgium, Denmark, Sweden, the Netherlands, Mexico, many Latin American countries, China, and Japan, they all have postpartum recovery programs that include taking care of the pelvic floor as well as taking care of the mom in her recovery process. And this is a really big deal. We don't have this in the United States as a standard, that's for sure. And so all of this to say that acupuncturists like yourself have a huge opportunity to bring pelvic care to your practices and to help clients transform their lives. As I mentioned, it's this unique opportunity. There's an interplay for us as acupuncturists because our magic as acupuncturists is getting to the source of the function or dysfunction, which is often two sides of the same coin, right? When we bring pelvic care into our practices as acupuncturists, when we start to learn about pelvic care, we bring in three main components, and that includes the physiology, which includes the muscle function, the structure, and the posture of the body. We bring in what's happening with the organ systems. The systems lead us to that TCM diagnosis or the pattern. And then we also bring in the spirit and the emotions through what we're doing with how we see the client's Shen, how we see all of the components of their spirit. And by bringing these components together, we're really serving the whole client, the client in totality. And I think this is the key to us really helping pelvic health clients. When I started off as a PT, I was working a lot with the physiology. I was working a lot in sports medicine, and I was working with the orthopedic function or dysfunctions, right, associated with pelvic care and pelvic health. And I found that more and more of the clients that were coming in had emotional needs, had needs within the systems. And the Western medicine or biomedical systems weren't really meeting the needs. And I had to look elsewhere. That's when I started really learning about TCM. That's when I started learning about the 5 elements and the spirit of the points. And then I went back to acupuncture school because I had to have that medicine to share what the clients needed, which went beyond the physiology. And you guys are acupuncturists. You already have some of this knowledge within you. It's just bringing it together into a viewpoint that is specific to pelvic health. Pelvic care is really a natural addition to many types of practices. If you have a women's health practice, a men's health practice, a fertility practice, sexual health, a sexuality-based practice, pregnancy, postpartum, pain, sports med, as we talked about, aging population practices, or pathology practice, you already have a natural in to work with pelvic care in your practice. This is an add-on to what you're already doing. And it's a specialty that's going to serve your clients. If you're serving them to 90% and they have a pelvic floor dysfunction that you might not have known how to treat before that, now you can serve them that last 10%, the 10% that's going to bring back components of their life that they've been missing, that they are seeking to bring back in. If you're thinking about bringing pelvic care to your practice, there are some serious questions you should really ask yourself. And you can take a screenshot of this slide, or you can write these questions down. But I think as you're bringing pelvic care in, it's really worth it for you to consider your vision. Why do you want to add pelvic care to your practice? What about pelvic care is going to really ignite your passion, ignite the fire inside of you? And how is this going to support your clientele? How is this going to support your practice, your dreams, and at the end of the day, your bottom line? And also, what does this mean for your mission or your ethos? While that may be the same as what your general mission of your practice is, there may be some new components to consider. So who's your target client here? And how will these services in pelvic care serve them? How will your services serve your community? And what services will you include? And that really depends on your type of practice. If you are really, really into herbal medicine, that definitely should be a component of how you're working with pelvic care. And you may have been treating pelvic care clients without really knowing it because you know the herbs to treat for different dysfunctions, right? Kidney yin deficiency has its list of herbs, kidney yang deficiency, etc. But now, as you combine sort of your Western knowledge with your Eastern knowledge and your herbology, then this becomes part of your service. What complementary services will you include? Some practitioners who do fertility or do a lot with menstruation include pelvic steaming or pelvic smoking in their practices. If that's something that you love and can offer in your practice, that may be a consideration as well. Maybe you love Qigong. Maybe that's one of your complementary services, or meditation or breathing exercise. Maybe you run a Zoom every week that is focused on yoga. How can you include that within what you're doing for these pelvic care clients, right? In order to add pelvic care as a specialty, I think the first most important thing is that you have to have a desire to add pelvic care. You have to want to work with the pelvis. If you don't, that's okay. Don't add pelvic care. We don't need to add any more things to our practice that we don't love, right? If you don't love neuro, if you don't love treating stroke clients and Parkinson's clients, or you don't have a practice that's set up to allow clients to walk in with their walkers and their canes and their wheelchairs, you're not going to start treating neuro clients, right? So you have to have a desire to bring pelvic care in, because treating the pelvis as a whole, while we don't always work with the pelvic floor, while we don't always work internally, does mean that we have to work on the pelvis to some extent. We have to assess the pelvis. So we want to understand that up front. Adding pelvic care means that we will work with the pelvis. You're going to want to have proper training and knowledge to treat the pelvis. If this is something that you have not done before, even if you've done dry needling before, even if you've done TCM before, even if you've done Spirit of the Points before, working with the pelvis has its own unique possibilities, its own unique contraindications, and its own unique indications, especially as we start to look with clients that might be pregnant or might be postpartum or might have prolapses, right? So we have interesting opportunities here to really expand our education. And whether you expand your education with me or someone else, it doesn't matter. But adding pelvic care as a specialty without proper knowledge is going to be a disservice to you and your clients. We want to have resources for teaching our clients. So there is going to be an investment upfront if you're going to begin working with pelvic health clients. You're going to need to have a pelvic model to show your clients what's happening. You'll have to have your anatomy books or apps, whatever it is that you can use to help your clients understand the language that you're speaking. You're going to want to have tools to support your clients through their process and tools that they're going to be able to include in their everyday. The greatest way for you to be successful with pelvic health clients is to get them invested in making the lifestyle changes. So if you're into breathing exercises, if you're into strengthening exercises, some of your orthos might really be into kind of some of those strengthening exercises. You may be able to instruct your clients to use wands or dilators or Kegel weights, depending on their dysfunction. You'll have to have those available to work with the clients and to show them. If you're into steaming or smoking of the pelvis, that's another thing. You'll have to have a setup awareness. In my practice, I have a squatty potty in each of my restrooms because squatty potties are one of the most beneficial tools when working with the pelvic floor. You'll need to have lube options because so many people come in and they say, I have vaginal dryness. I don't want to use a lubricant because of the stigma associated with it. And it's like, okay, we're going to work with your internal lubrication. At the same time, you should not be having friction pain every time that you have intercourse, every time that you're masturbating, because of a stigma associated with it, right? We want to gently walk our client through that process, and we want to allow them to use those tools, and having them available makes them understand that there's no reason to be embarrassed, that the stigma doesn't have to exist. And if you're into teas and herbs and etc., you're going to have all that stuff at your practice available for your clients. These things are going to help you to bring income in addition to helping your clients buy into long-term plans. Because pelvic health, just like health of the body, right? We don't tell clients, you should be doing yoga or running or whatever it is that they love, right? We don't tell them, oh, just do that for 6 weeks and then you're good. No, it's a lifestyle. Whatever physical activity that they're choosing is a lifestyle. Whatever de-stressing activities that we encourage our clients to do, whether that's journaling or needlepoint or going out into nature, right? It really depends on what they love. But the same thing with the pelvic floor. We want to encourage our clients to make pelvic health part of their daily self-care routine. And we need the time, the space, and the resources. So the pelvic exam itself is one of the most dreaded, according to research, one of the most dreaded and feared and misunderstood medical procedures. And it provokes a serious amount of anxiety for clients. Pelvic care clients can be really excited about the process because they're like, oh my gosh, I trust you. You're my acupuncturist. I've met you before. I've seen you on Instagram, whatever the case might be. I met you at a health fair. I really trust you and I'm really excited about this. At the same time, when they walk in, if they have the thought that they're going to be, laying down on a table right away and spreading their legs open, which is not the case, it's going to provoke that anxiety. So we want our treatment rooms to be comfortable. We want them to reflect the experience of them building awareness. We want it to be the experience of healing their pelvis, not something that says, oh, these are all the things that are wrong with you, right? Because they already know the things that are wrong. They're already embarrassed about the things that are wrong. They're already experiencing shame about the things that are wrong. So the more comfortable that we can make them, the more collaborative that we can make the process, the better that these clients are going to feel in the end. And we also want to consider that we're probably going to need longer treatment times. So if you have a high volume clinic, a lot of people who do have high volume clinics, they've said that what they do is they book in 2 treatment time slots. If you're not high volume practice and your treatments are normally, your evals are normally a half hour, you might do 45 minutes or you might do an hour to include both the evaluation and the treatment. If you have a 5 elements practice and you're used to spending 2 hours, well, 2 hours will probably be adequate for you in working with your clients. So you just want to be aware of having those resources available. And if it is going to be something that takes more time, the price should go up, right? You want to accommodate for that. And again, it's a specialty. It's something extraordinary that these clients are getting for you. And what do you think the value is for a client who comes to see you at, let's say, 52 years old, who is having bladder leakage issues, right? Let's just say incontinence is part of their story. Let's say they come to see you at 52 and that's, let's say, right around the time that they've just gone through the menopause stage. And then the next 20 or 30 years of their life, because they've learned good habits, they've had treatment and they've sought out perhaps infrequent treatments as follow-ups, like maintenance visits throughout the years with you. That's a great client, but also it changes their life tremendously. There's huge value here that you're bringing to your clients. Okay, so let's talk about money since we're already sort of there. As a service, I mentioned this, pelvic care should be priced higher than your general acupuncture. It is a specialty. Don't forget that. It takes more time. Therefore, it should be priced higher. I hope you're getting that. A lot of people are very successful with packages of 10 or doing 3-month memberships. It depends on how you have your practice structured. And this is great because the clients are going to be invested upfront. You're going to have the best chance of success and delivering results with these clients because they're committed. sometimes we get really lucky and we get a client who's had migraines for their whole life and they come in and we do one session and it's like, man, I didn't have another migraine for a month and I'm totally satisfied. Like, I don't need to come back. This is great. Their life is transformed. But that's not always the case. And with pelvic care, we really want to play the long game. We really want to provide sustainable results, right? So having them invested in a package is going to provide the greatest opportunity for that to happen. It's also going to get the client to show up for themselves, to build awareness for their own body. It's going to bring you money into the till when you're starting off with your new specialty. And your package may be something you can consider this based on how you price things, but it could include your herbs, it could include your nutrition counseling, it could include, cupping, whatever it is that might be extra for a regular session. Maybe those aren't extra charges for pelvic care. Maybe they're included in this package. So you get to increase the price tag while including stuff that you would already naturally be including anyway. And if you're doing, fertility, or in your state, if you're in Florida, Colorado, Maryland, something like that, and you're doing injections, there's a great profit margin on injections. So those could be something that could be included as well. And let's talk about community. I have seen pelvic health therapists in many ways do community events or classes. And this is a great way to start to get your name out there. It's also a great way to start to have clients building awareness. They might not be ready to be a client yet, but once they start building awareness and they start to perhaps see changes or perhaps build more sense of what's truly happening in their body, then they could become a client. It's also a nice way to bring in larger sums of money and treat larger amounts of people, which means your ripple effect gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And at the end of the day, while yes, we are all in business and we do care about money, we do want our clients and our community members to feel better. That's what's in our hearts, right? Finally, retention. Education is really key. So having printouts, having audios or witty or clever ways for them to remember different things is a great way to sort of help with the retention process. I have an audio of the pelvic breath that I give to every single client that's coming in for pelvic care, and some that are coming in for other services, because it is a great way for them to get embodied into their pelvis. And it's easy. I made it on my phone as an audio recording. I named it the pelvic breath, and that's it. I send it to them in an email. Super easy way to encourage your clients to participate in the teachings that you share on a regular basis. Okay, so this is really our last educational slide before we go into some of your questions. So marketing a new specialty, right? How do we go about doing this as acupuncturists? Well, I think the key for so many acupuncturists that I talk to is word of mouth. So often, Susie comes in for acupuncture. Susie's migraines feel better. Susie tells her sister, Susie's sister's friend, Julie, all of a sudden wants to come in for migraines. So word of mouth is a great, great way for you to continue to get clients. And with pelvic health clients, while they might be shy to talk about what's happening initially, once they're feeling better, my goodness, they want to tell everyone. Like perimenopausal clients and menopausal clients, once they're like, oh my gosh, I'm not having leakage, I don't have to wear a pad when I go to yoga, they're like, hallelujah. They're screaming it from, the top of the building, and they want to tell all their friends about it. So this is a great way to get clients in, and you don't need a lot of clients to start with. 1 or 2 clients is a great way to start. The newsletter. One of the marketing acupuncturists actually that I was working with, and I don't remember who it was, otherwise I'd love to credit them, reminded me that the newsletter is owned space, and where social media is rented space. A newsletter essentially puts you in front of people. They have the choice to click open or click delete. That's up to them. We can't control that, but they have the choice. Whereas on social media, you put it out there and they don't always see it because of the algorithm. So it's less about a choice and more about what kind of just happens based on what other factors are going on in this social media world that I don't understand all the details about. So newsletters are a great opportunity. Tell your clients that you're offering a new service. Tell them why it's so important. Play on the emotional aspect of quality of life. Utilize that to help. See if you can get a press release. Since pelvic health is being talked about more often, this might be something that's possible within your community or within like your chamber of commerce. Connecting with local providers as a non-competitive but support system is a great way as well to get referrals. Pelvic PTs that hit their threshold with clients and don't know what to do next send clients to me all the time. So this is another resource. It's like we've made some progress with X, Y, and Z, but we just can't get past whatever percentage of growth there is. Chiros, gynecologists, urologists, other acupuncturists, doulas, midwives, pain clinics are great resources. And there's a huge link between chronic pain in the back, chronic pain in the jaw, chronic pain in the abdomen, and pelvic pain. So those statistics are out there too. So you can search them, Google them, utilize those types of statistics to connect with these types of practices. And then finally, if you love social media, use it to your advantage. People who love it are more successful than people who don't love it because of the energy that you put into it. I just wanted to say one more thing in regards to retention that's key. And it is in regards specifically to objective measures. In my program, I do a lot with teaching about objective measures. What are the ways in which you can assess these clients so that they can see what's happening in their body and build more awareness to being embodied? And those things include like frequency of times that they get up at night to urinate. If they're not thinking about these things and how they limit them, they're just going to think, oh, I was getting up 3 times a night. I'm still getting up, even though it's once. It's like we have to remind them that this is progress. And we also want to know, okay, now what time are you getting up? Because if we know what time they're getting up, that might help us with the pattern of what's the next layer of the onion, right? Okay, so really quickly, before we get into questions, because that is where we are at, I just want to tell you about my advanced pelvic care certificate. In my advanced pelvic care certificate, I offer my online classes and I also offer my practical. I think there are 28 total CEUs for my online component, and there are 16 in the practical live component. And in online, we go over all of the details of anatomy and physiology, pelvic pathology, and morph the two TCM and biomedical Western together. We talk about spirit of the points of the pelvis. We talk about all those complementary techniques of how to work with your clients and get them on board with doing things at home, making lifestyle changes to help their process. We talk about Chinese nutrition for the pelvis based on the pattern that you diagnose. We talk about pelvic care treatment techniques and protocols specifically, as well as getting into ethics and safety in pelvic care, which are unique to pelvic care because of its sort of sensitive and emotional nature. So those classes are really interesting and also very important if you're going to bring pelvic care into your practice. In the practical, we're going over some of the specific techniques for palpation, for needling of the ashi points, the muscle-specific ashi points of the pelvic floor, and also the concomitant structures. So how to work with the glutes, how to work with the abdominals, and how that can significantly benefit what you're doing with your clients. If you were on the call at the beginning, one of the participants in my Florida class, Julie, had just mentioned she's worked with 2 clients already. She's been doing some abdominal points, some of the glute points, and they've already made improvements with their pelvic health symptoms. So these points are super beneficial. We get to practice all this stuff within the practical. It's amazing. It's totally full of like everything that I can possibly give you. We are NCCOM approved, and we are California and Florida approved, which is really exciting. And in 2025, we have just released, like yesterday, our lineup for where we're going to be. So we'll be in Colorado, California, the DC area, Seattle, Washington, Maine, and Arizona. So if those areas are appealing for you because they're close by, or they're appealing for you because you're like, I am in the cold, rainy New England, and I really want to go to LA, that's an option for you as well. And because you're here for the virtual open house during the holiday season, I have a super special offer for you, which is that I am going to give you $500 off of my advanced certificate course, which includes all of my online plus my live practical with the coupon code OPEN4BIZ. So Caitlin's going to pop that into the comment section. Also, you can get $100 if you just want to come to a live practical. You can have $100 off the lives with the coupon code expansion. So she'll give you the direct links for that. And now we will go into your questions. So your questions can be about my program. They can be about how to bring pelvic care in. They can be specific pelvic health questions. Whatever you've got, I'm willing to take it for the hour that we have together. Okay. Great. Will Asheville, North Carolina ever be an option for teaching alive? Autumn, is that your question? Yes. Okay. Yeah, I mean, everywhere is an option. The 2025 list right now is sort of maxed out. So if all of these classes sell out, I keep my classes to 12 participants just to make it manageable. If these classes all sell out, then we may add one more date in for 2025. Otherwise, 2026 is an option. I think probably the closest location to North Carolina is going to be probably the DC area. So that would perhaps be your best bet if you want to bring this in 2025. Otherwise, if you have some specific ideas about locations, you can certainly send me a message. I'm always open to entertaining locations and working with practitioners to do that. But it will unlikely be 2025 that we add in an additional location. That's a good question. Autumn, thank you so much. Okay, cool. Yeah, sure. Feel free. Caitlin can pop our email address into the chat now so that if you want to send us an email with your locations that you think would be cool, for sure, please do so. Any questions or thoughts on bringing pelvic care into your practice, what that might be like, or specific questions about pelvic care, how that would work for you? What to do if you have a high volume practice, what to do if you have, a community acupuncture practice, something like that. Any questions that you guys have, I want to answer them. This is about you, which is why I only did a 20-minute today. And if you want to, you can certainly unmute yourself and put your video on so that we can chat. Okay. Yeah, Genevieve has a good question. So what are my rates for pelvic acupuncture? So what I do is I do a sliding scale, which some people don't like a sliding scale. So that's really up to you. I do a sliding scale so that if people want to pay at the bottom, they can. If people want to pay at the top, they can. My evaluation is $255 to $285 for pelvic like bringing someone on for care. And then my rates after that are $165 to $195, I think, for follow-up sessions. How often did you find that you're using? Yeah, that's a great question, Naomi. So the pelvic floor muscles are a small component of the pelvis itself. And I find that actually the local pelvic points I'm using less than I'm using the big motor points in some of the other musculature. And I also really like to build a foundation using some of those other points first. And reason being is if I can get something to move by using those glute points, by using the 6 deep rotators of the hip, for example, then I'm going to start to impact what's happening with the pelvic floor. Because these muscles are smaller and flatter, the need to do them super frequently is less likely. So in let's say we're using a 10 visit sort of package as an example, I will probably do max the pelvic floor points 3 times during that 10 visit schedule. Hopefully that answers your question, Naomi. That's a great question. And one other thing I could say is I always, even when I'm doing the local points, like the muscle specific ashi points, which is essentially the same as dry needling, but it's the Acu way of talking about it. I really like to do other body points as well that are going to either support the constitution, or they're going to support the pattern that's in the body, or they're going to support their spiritual emotional development. Okay. Yes, definitely. So being that I'm a PT, and when I was working just as a PT, I really focused heavily on manual therapy. So in my classes, I try to give manual techniques for working with the pelvis, specifically some that are the big movers, the big changers for what's happening with the pelvic and postural alignment. You can definitely do acupressure within the pelvic bowl and the pelvic floor. You can teach your clients to do acupressure within the pelvic floor and the pelvic bowl. Sometimes I actually like to have clients use the pelvic wand to work with those kind of trigger points, tender points. Using a cork ball is a great way, as long as they don't have too much tenderness. And sometimes I'll even instruct a partner to work with those points on the outside. And because I'm a PT, I do internal as well to work with the points in the internal part of the pelvis also. So yes, manual is absolutely 100% part of what we're doing here. Yeah, so that's a great question, Julie. What's a general care plan that we can present to our patients? And are there templates? I don't have a template that I can give you today, simply because that's so much of what we do in our, in-person class is really that treatment planning component. But I'll essentially walk you through sort of an example of a process so that you can get a feel. So when someone comes in for their initial evaluation, I want to get their interview. So I want to really get a sense of what's happening and what they perceive is happening within their body, which needs to include their digestive system. It needs to include their sleep, it needs to include what's happening sexually for them, what's happening with their bladder and their bowel function, what's happening in the systems. Do they have chi deficiency? Do they have some excesses, etc.? I like to get full TCM diagnosis with the pulses, with the tongue. I use the eyes a little bit in my practice. That's just how I work. That's how I learned. And I also like to really put my hands on the client's pelvis and assess their structure and function in standing, and also in laying down, in supine, and in prone. So that's something that I start with. Once we've done that, I provide my assessment. And again, in the assessment, I like to talk about what's going well for the client and where they need to kind of make some improvements, and what the improvements they can expect are. So on that day, I also always do treatment on the first day. I'm trained as a 5 elements acupuncturist, and I really believe in the initial evaluation process that 5 elements acupuncturists go through, which includes, if there's possession, clearing the possession, clearing AE, if there's AE, aggressive energy, clearing any blocks that are in the pulses. I think that this is going to provide the strongest foundation for clients to be successful. And I've actually done clinical research without publishing it, but just to see what happens, how clients that present similarly have experience results. And of course, every client is different, but I've done kind of 2 rooms going at the same time. And in one room, I've done all the clearing. In the other room, I haven't. And I always experience the clients that have a full initial clearing experience better results than those that don't, because I think it just builds the foundation for what's happening. What happens after this depends on your specialty, right? Again, if you're an herbalist, you're probably going to start day 1 or day 2 with starting to prescribe some herbs for your clients. If you're really into nutrition, you're going to start bringing in nutritional guidelines for this client. If you see that this client has kidney insufficiency, you're going to start talking about bringing in black sesame seed and all of these things that can help to nourish the kidneys, right? You want them to start doing that as soon as possible, because that's going to help you. If you're really into auricular acupuncture, or you're really into spirit of the points, you'll bring that in. Okay, so your treatment plan needs to include how you work as a practitioner, what you love. If you're going to work predominantly orthopedically, we're going to start saying, okay, so your pelvis is rotated on one side and it's also superior on one side versus the other. We want to correct that imbalance before we ever get to the pelvic floor. So we'll start to talk with that client about how we're going to do that. We'll use manual therapy, and then we'll start perhaps working with the glutes on the first session. The back of the body, the more yang part of the body, is going to be a little less sensitive than working with the anterior part of the body. So maybe we'll start with the glutes, kind of working that area. We'll work with the low back. We'll work with the SI joint. And then next session, we'll work with the abdominal muscles, right? We'll reassess. So that's already your first 3 sessions kind of worked out. So let's say we're starting to make some progress with what's happening. And then it's like, the client all of a sudden comes out with, I was actually sexually abused. Okay, well, now we're going to have to bring in some spirit of the point stuff, right? Because now we're working with emotions. So it's kind of these layers of how we work with a client that we put together a treatment plan. And we don't know exactly how it's going to frame out, but you can essentially use what your skill set is to create your frame. So hopefully that helps answer your question, Julie. Okay. Is clearing a treatment its own standalone treatment? Okay, so that's a great question. So if a client, let's say a client presents with possession, let's say they've got pulse blocks and they've got AE as well. That's going to be a standalone treatment. I'm not going to add anything else to do that because that's like 3 treatments in one already. If the client doesn't seem to, let's say the client is already one of your clients, they don't have pulse blocks, they don't have possession, you did AE 3 months ago, well, you don't really have to do much that day, right? For this client to create that foundation. You're going to start to work with opening them up to receive the pelvic points. So maybe you'll work with some of the lower CV, lower GV points, that kind of thing. Work with some of those kidney points, if that's what you see, or spleen points, if you see like prolapse, that kind of thing. So yeah, your foundation is going to be a lot different for someone you've never seen before that's got a lot going on versus someone that you have been seeing consistently. So it sort of depends how much, but if it's a client I've never met before and they are not, let's say they're not possessed and they didn't have AE, but they've had a pulse block, something like that. By the time we're sort of done assessing the pulse block and really seeing what's in the system, if I've got the TCM pattern, usually what I'll do is add in some points for TCM. So there's like 2 sort of components. 1 is clear the block. 2 is add in some TCM points. I don't know how they respond to acupuncture because they're brand new. So I want to see how they respond before I go in deep, right? So hopefully that answers your question, Julie. Are you using internal palpation with some of the pelvic floor points around the genitals and the anus? This is taught in dry needling classes with PTs, but I'm curious. Yes. Okay. So it is a gray area. That is a great question, Autumn. It depends on your state. It depends on your license specifically. I do teach to those who have the ability to go internally, and it really depends whether you can do that or not. At many of my classes, I have had no one that has the opportunity to do internal palpation because of their licensure. So we don't work with the internal. It really depends on your license. And that part is something that you have to know for yourself. In my practice, do I do internal? Yes, I do. And again, is it like my go-to, my first thing? Not always. I just had a client come in this week with pelvic pain, severe prolapse. She actually had a uterine prolapse. She had her uterus removed and now she has a bladder prolapse. We did not go internal on day 1 because she was freaked out before she even came in. So we did a lot with where she was at. She has severe pelvic pain as well. And the severe pelvic pain, I think, would have been seriously triggered by going and palpating internally. So we didn't do an internal on the first day. I probably will do an internal with her by the end of her treatment, just clearing AE, clearing her pulse blocks, and then doing a couple of points to lift up the spleen energy. Her pelvic pain had been reduced by 75%. So yes, internal is useful. It's not always the total answer though. And I think that's important for us to remember and know what your responsibilities are based on, what your licensure is. Okay. All right, fabulous. Are there any other questions for today? We're just getting sort of to the end here. Anything that you want to know, anything that you would like me to teach about, any other kind of thoughts that you have for today? I know some people already have to run, and that's okay if you have to run. Thank you for being here. Just give it a moment for anyone to kind of type out what might be remaining. You're welcome, Julie. Glad you got it. Okay, so once again, my discount code, my special $500 off big, huge sale that I run once a year is available to you guys just for 24 hours. So if you know you're going to sign up for the advanced certificate, this is the moment to do it. And reference the raffle again. Yes, sure. So if you share a story or you share a like of yourself talking about what we did today, or you share a clip of my teaching, you'll be entered to win the raffle, which gives you a free class of your choice. So those are kind of our options. I hope that made it fun for an open house where we weren't offering a CEU for you guys. I hope that made it a lot of fun and allowed you guys to kind of play a little bit with what we're offering here. And I would love to see you in one of my live classes or online. So yeah, I think that would be fabulous. And there are already people doing entries, which is great. I'm so glad that it was informative, Autumn. As you can probably see already, as you start to see how I teach, I will give you as much as I possibly can in the time that we work together. So, if you have questions, generally speaking, if I can't answer them, I will make sure that I'm able to at some point. Otherwise, I try to give you as much as I can. I have been doing this since 2009. So the body of knowledge that I have is pretty vast. And like I said, sharing it with Acus is really, really my passion. So thank you everyone for being in attendance. And if there's nothing else, I look forward to meeting you in one of my lives. Bye.